All right, now we're gonna move on to a concept called throw. So I've set these two balls up straight down the table. I use some little donuts so I can set them up again fast. If I hit these two balls in a straight line, I will transfer the energy through the 1 into the 11, and the 11 should travel straight down the table. My assistant is going to actually put a piece of chalk where the 11 hits on the rail. So I actually executed that pretty good. The ball went pretty close to straight down the table, and that's kind of our control shot. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and hit in such a way that I'm doing like a half ball hit on the 13. Now the 1 is in the way. The 1's going to force me to hit in the exact same spot. Now we're going to look at where the 11 ball hits on the end rail. That was a good 5 inches off. Now I'm going to do the same thing from the other side. So we see a deviation of about 5 inches either side. This is important. This is called throw. And what it is it is cut angle change at the moment of impact caused by friction. So even though these two balls are sitting here and they're touching, by imparting force this way, it pushes the 1 this way, and friction pushes the 11 this way, and our end result was we ended up hitting that chalk piece. Now if I come over on this side and hit the 1 ball this way, it pushes the 11 ball this way, and we ended up hitting this chalk piece. So you see, between those two extremes, we have a good almost 11 inches, wouldn't you say, Melissa?
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily always that the balls are lined up straight as to where they're to go. So we need to account for this friction at the moment of impact. Now a couple of different things happen. One is, if I want to send the ball down the line, and my cue ball was over here, I can cut the 1 in such a way that I'm going straight down the table. So instead of hitting the 1 ball this way, I can cut the 1 ball this way, and now I can send the 11 ball pretty much straight down to that chalk piece in the middle. Same thing from the other side. If I were to cut the 1 ball towards the chalk piece, it'll send that force down that line, and I can actually hit the chalk piece. But if I do want it to throw out to one side or the other, so if I want it to go over this way, I can hit the 1 this way. It'll push the 11 that way. There's a remarkable amount of consistency there.
Yeah, you're hitting the chalk right now.
Now if I do it from the other side, kind of the same thing. I can push the ball out so that it ends up hitting over on my left, or the camera's right. So we saw 3 different extremes of where I can put it. Now how can I control somewhere in the middle? What I can do is I can actually hit the 1 ball a little somewhere in the middle instead of hitting it towards the extreme, or that half ball hit or 30 degrees, which is where my maximum friction is going to be and the most throw I can get. I could actually aim it more like this and get it to go closer to the center. Or I can change the speed. What I actually did on these shots was I hit them relatively soft. So soft is where the most friction is going to occur. If I were to actually hit that 11 or the 1 ball straight on but hit it a lot harder, I could actually cut that 11 more into the middle and be closer to straight. So that came in a few inches by hitting it harder. So you can kind of combine that contact point. So instead of being hitting here hard, ended up being an inch or two inside that piece of chalk. Hitting closer to straight on could be closer to the center. Or reverse it. Kind of the same thing from the other side. If I want to hit that harder, it's not going to go as far out there. So I cut it by about a third. So let's talk about a couple things that we just learned here. One is throw as a cut angle change. So before we saw some curves occurring. This is not a curve. The ball is going straight down the table, but it was a change at the moment of impact. It changed that angle. Now, your equipment is going to make a difference. This is where this little shot that I set up is kind of important. When I set this up and did a little test, given the conditions right now in here, we're kind of a medium temperature, modest humidity, the balls are fairly clean, the table is pretty clean, we are able to get about a 5, maybe 5.5 inch throw one direction or the other over the course of this distance. Now this distance, typical cue is 58 inches, so we got about 6 feet. We're getting almost 1 inch of throw per foot of travel. We're not quite an inch, but pretty close. So that's kind of the maximum throw that we can get on this table today. Now, if I have some old beat up balls and they're all chalky and everything's dirty and grimy, I might be able to get another inch or two of throw, or even more on some of them. Some balls, you feel them, they're almost like sandpaper. If I had that type of situation, I'd get a lot more throw. If they're super clean and brand new and been polished, I might not get this much throw. So you kind of, this is a great shot to set up one time and hit if you're on a table that you're not sure about, or if you're going into a really important match, so that you can see how much throw you get on that table on that day. Okay, so we just talked about collision-induced throw. Now there is another type of throw, which is spin-induced throw. So now we know there's friction between these balls. If I use a cue ball that you can see the spin, I can do the same type of thing with just spin. I can hit this 11 ball straight on and just put spin on it and be able to throw that ball a similar distance. It'll probably be a little bit less, but it'll probably be able to spin it out 3 or 4 inches. Now I'm going to go ahead and use right English from my perspective, which is going to push the ball to the left. And I'm hitting the ball pretty much straight on. Try it. So I was able to throw it out there almost as far. If I put left spin on the ball, now I'm going to push it to my right. Reverse for perspective from somebody looking right at it. So I'm able to throw it out 3 or 4 inches that way. The amount of like spin-induced throw, generally you get about half as much as you might with collision-induced throw. Some people might get a little bit more if your stroke's great and you get a ton of spin. The other thing is you got to be a little careful, because as you start to put spin on the ball, now you're deflecting the cue ball. It's going a slightly different direction and not necessarily going down that line, and you got to introduce more variables to this. So please like and subscribe to this video series and go through the videos and work on each individual point and try to give yourself the best stroke that you could possibly have.